All right. You got anything?
I can hear you now. There you are.
I had Logic running and iMovie at the same time.
Oh.
I don't think it knew what the hell to do with the signal.
You're just
Look at
trying.
you.
Look at you.
It's good to see and hear you, my brother.
Oh, you too, man.
I see your book behind you.
Yeah. That's my product placement. Pretty subtle, huh?
Hey, look at me.
I know. I like it. Plus all the toys and accoutrement.
Dude, I like the beard. It's looking good. Look, I'm right behind you.
Thank you. Yeah. I got tired of like the whole thing, and I thought, well, I'll just shave the sides and just kind of keep this mess going and seeing what happens. Nice shirt, by the way.
Dude, I got to show you this.
Yeah.
This is my Japanese destroyer shirt.
Oh, that is freaking sweet. If you as you should,
Taking over.
go on to Heavy Metal Horror Podcast and subscribe, as you should.
Yes.
And
Happy to.
And watch our episode we did a few weeks back called our top 10 album covers of all time.
Destroyer.
That was my pick.
Okay.
As like the coolest album art. I mean, that captured everything that the 10-year-old Mark, 9-year-old Mark wanted in rock. It's like comic books. Man. It's like it was just adventure, danger. It was like, oh my God, right in my wheelhouse. And I thought,
absolutely.
Yeah, this is.
What were some of the other ones?
I don't want to spoil it for you, man.
No. Oh, okay.
But I will say my first choice, I believe number 10 for me was Boston, their first album. That cover is just gorgeous. Those spaceships, guitars, and the flames coming out. And another one, I'll give this one away because I think it was my number 5 pick. Merciful Fate. Don't Break the Oath.
Okay. Wow.
It's so rock and roll. You got this yellow flames and this or red flames and this demon coming through and pointing. It's just so metal. You can't.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good one.
I think Destroyer is my favorite one.
Yeah.
I think. Well, maybe.
I like Love Gun.
I like this one too.
Yes, that is an awesome one. That is right next to Destroyer. It's a hard fight.
I've got all of my. This is so cool for me because I've got all of my. I was lucky. I found a good copy of the books.
Nice.
I have I like the second book so much better.
Okay.
And I have 300 copies of these. But this one where I don't think the writing is nearly as good, I didn't even, I'll get into more of it later.
Yeah.
I can't keep these, still, so I don't know if any are, I think they're still on Amazon too. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But how about if I do my intro?
Let's do it.
And then we'll get going. How's that?
All right.
Hey, this is Mark Justice again. Welcome back to Between the Lines. And tonight, kids,
Dr.
Head. That's right. Dr. Head on Unsane Radio. And don't forget on Heavy Metal Horror, I'm Montag.
Good stuff.
Revolution. Tonight, we've got a good friend and a good brother. Tim Price. I love you, man.
Hey, you too, Mark. It's so great.
It is.
We talk. I know Facebook has its undesirable parts, but I got to tell you, we wouldn't be able to keep up without it so much. We talk almost every day on there, but it is a pleasure to hear your voice
and yours as well, to see your face moving instead of a static picture.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I'm so grateful for this technology. Oh man. So Tim, welcome to Between the Lines. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me. This is awesome.
I'm so happy that you're here. We can get a chance to talk, and not just about your books. I certainly want you to be able to showcase your books and your ministry.
Sure.
But just to get to catch up with you, man. It's been it feels forever.
So I'm just, I feel bad for you because I'm like, and look at this, and look
at this.
No,
it's all good, man.
I got this, and I got this, and look at this, there's that.
Yeah. No, this is fantastic. No, this is good, man. Eventually we're going to get around to writing. But this is, I knew, I wanted to make sure that you had opportunities to talk about all these things. And this is one thing I really like about you, that I've always liked about you as a friend, not just because you're such a great guy and just a nice human being. I admire your passion and I admire your dedication to to these things, and you have there's an exuberance that comes from within. It just kind of bubbles out of you, and so whether it's that like kid inside that just is always excited to be around that, or just an actual exuberance about just living. But that's just one thing I've always liked about you. So no, this is awesome. I mean, look, if they've watched this first 7 or 8 episodes and they're still hanging in with us, then they're nothing's going to throw them now. So thanks for watching.
That's
and
awesome.
we're gonna, but they're just gonna, this is awesome
for so many of us, monster, kaiju, pop culture fans, whatever you want to say. I mean, I can't speak for anybody, but I can speak for me that when I was growing up, I grew up in a dysfunctional house. There was a lot of drinking. There was a lot of, anybody who grew up in that environment understands what I'm talking about. And so trauma is created from that, and just and I'll connect this to the books in a few seconds. But in all actuality, Godzilla number one, followed by pretty much anything Ray Harryhausen, then science fiction, pop culture comedy. I loved Jerry Lewis, the Marx Brothers, all of that stuff. I loved music. All of those became not only my passion, but my escape. Mm-hmm. So that's how I got away from a lot of the reality of my upbringing, was to throw on one of these movies, and or to go to my, my Monster from Screen to Screen book by Ed Naha, and all those big coffee table monster books we had, or go on the TV and try to find a comedy movie or something like that. But honestly, that's why I'm so passionate about it. And as my life took another direction as I got older, coming out of that part of my life, I was so grateful pretty much just to be alive, and grateful that I could relive all of this stuff and I could come back to it. That's why G-Fest is so special to me, and that's why it means so much to me to go there and meet people like you and other folks who go, and all of the friendships we make. And yeah, dude, I'm real passionate about it. I mean, maybe even to a fault, but I don't know if I could be any other way.
Sure. No, I get it. I think I was a monster kid as well.
Yeah.
I think most of us can say that, who are in our age. Grew up watching things like Ultraman and Johnny Sacco.
Giant Sacco. Johnny Sacco and Giant Robo.
Yeah, Ultraman and Speed Racer, Kimba the White Lion, and then Godzilla and Gamera. I watched them every day. I come home from school and there's Ultraman, in the evening, and Johnny Sacco, and I just kind of grew up on it. And there was no American entertainment like that. It didn't matter to me where it was coming from. I just fell madly in love with this genre, this kaiju genre, or tokusatsu, or whatever you want to call it. That special effects, kiddies. That's what that means. A kind of special effects series like Power Rangers.
Live action.
Live action special effects. And then as I got older, I found, Kamen Rider and things like that, which were just, great fun. So there's just still part of me that every time I watch these movies, I still feel like I'm a 10-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid, because I still love them in that area, and so I think that there's part of it, like the new Legendary movies, just don't spark it at the same for me. There's something different, a little more serious, a little more realistic. I think maybe that's part of it, but
everything's so serious nowadays. I take it so serious,
right? And there was something about these movies after the first couple movies, by the time King Kong versus Godzilla comes out in '62, they'd realize, okay, the more you see a monster, the less scary it becomes. And then they bring in intentional humor into the script. And I think that's why, like, King Kong versus Godzilla is probably my favorite of the movies.
It was written as a comedy.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how many like kaiju fans are also musicians?
Yeah.
I know you are too.
I am. Right.
Isn't that wild? And
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool. We're kind of our own unique blend.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about some writing.
Yes, please.
Okay, I've got a whole bunch of questions here. You've already
We're
answered
already
some
about
of them.
an hour in.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's okay. This is a casual conversation between friends.
I got to tell you, Mark, I've done a bunch of these interviews, and it usually goes this way. I've decided that yes, it is me. I talk too much.
It's okay. I have no problem with that. I mean, I've got no agenda other than to get to know writers, and that's why I did this show. I've met so many wonderful writers through Instagram that and people who write in genres that I'm not familiar with or do things, and I thought I've got to find a way to not only get to know them and talk from one writer to another, but also to give them a place to showcase their work and a platform where they can talk about what makes them excited. And it's a good cross-pollination. I help promote them, they promote me, the show, and I just think there's enough room at the top of the hill for everybody to plant their flags and see who salutes it. I'm in no competition with anyone else. And I just really like getting to know people. I love this idea of podcasting, doing interviews, and having it out there in the world. It's very exciting, for me. And even though we've been friends for ages, this is like the first time I think that we sat and talked about like writing together.
There's usually a lot going on around us.
Yeah, where you're at the table, you were at the table when you're for G-Fest, or we're talking about G-Fest things, or just hanging out,
watching movies. And
and so I'm really excited to talk about that. So let's go into talking about something big picture stuff. I like starting with the big picture questions. Like, who were some of your favorite writers growing up? Some of your favorite writers, some of your favorite books?
Well, growing up, I didn't read much fiction growing up. I loved coffee table horror books. I loved reading bios and books about movies and how like my favorite book was The Making of King Kong. But I also loved any movie that talked about horror movies in general, pop culture. And believe it or not, I think I get some of my writing chops from that because I venture into that pop culture area quite often. But believe it or not, and I know this will probably sound cliche, but as far as science fiction goes, I loved H.G. Wells. And I mean, I immediately want to take this over to my War of the Worlds collection.
Nice.
But that was I saw long before I read any book, I was watching way too much TV, and I saw George.
So grateful that TV raised us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it did a fine job.
Yeah, we're mostly normal, right?
Yeah, mostly. I remember watching the 1953 George Pal War of the Worlds, the big enchilada one. And I remember just falling in love with and this was after I was a Godzilla fan too already, but I remember falling in love with absolutely everything to do with film and story and special effects and even the fear factor a little bit, of the idea. That movie scared me, man. It scared me.
Those alien ships hovering.
Yeah.
And the sounds they make. It's so very creepy.
That
kind of hissing, warbling sound. Metallic and vibrating. Yeah, it's
absolutely. It was scary. And then, but it was that movie though that inspired me to read my first novel, which when I was young, and that was War of the Worlds.
Nice. That's a great novel.
Available. I went to the library and picked it up. Oh yeah, and it scared the crap out of me.
I totally get it. The love that stuff's always classic. There's a reason why it's classic.
Yeah, and that The Time Machine's a wonderful book too. That even gets a little. It gets a little unnerving at times, when you're reading it. And of course, I loved Stephen King. I do, but then again, I like Dan Brown, and I believe it or not, I love the Harry Potter series too. I mean, I read that faithfully. It was fun. It was exciting. I didn't love every aspect of it, but it was still fun. And I like things. I like things that are that's quite the hero journey. I mean, we're talking what, 8 books long of a hero
Yeah,
journey.
it's amazing. I mean,
So,
I've never read them, never really felt compelled to. I was more pulled in by Rowling's story,
yeah,
homeless
me too. Me
and
too.
poverty stricken to like the
Yep.
world's first billionaire author.
Yep.
I mean, kudos, good for you.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
that's amazing. So I'm happy for her journey.
Yeah.
I would love to have written a series that was a tenth of as successful, and I'd be happy with 100 million. I'm okay with that. I'm not gonna be too greedy.
You're not greedy.
No, I'm not gonna be too greedy. I'll take 100 million.
Sure.
That's still plenty enough to
I'm with
share
you.
with my friends.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And don't forget, I'm your friend.
That's right. Not forgetting at all. You're gonna have so many 8mm movies, you won't know what to do with them. we're gonna have you open up an 8mm theater for people to come in. You can charge them a dime to come in and have popcorn and watch movies.
Oh my gosh. My life would come full circle, if that
exactly.
happened. So,
right. That would be called. That'd be good.
Just amazing. And I would, without any hesitation, say that H.G. Wells is my favorite author.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you can't go wrong with that. Yeah. So what was it that first drew you into writing? Like when was the switch saying, you know what, I want to write?
Well, I think a lot of us will relate to this. Along with using monster movies and films and comedy as a great escape growing up, as a kid, I started dabbling in it. I mean, you can probably relate. You're sitting at school and it's like you watched a Godzilla movie the night before and it's like, I want to write my own Godzilla story. And I remember the first book or first story that I ever wrote that got past one chapter, because I've got a billion unwritten books.
Don't we all?
Yeah, it was about. So I grew up in Minnesota, and it was, I remember my family had gone up to Duluth, and I think I was like 8 or 9 years old, and we went to there's a Radisson hotel there that has a spinning restaurant on top that overlooks Lake Superior. It's still there, but it's sort of like how Tokyo is now. It's engulfed by larger buildings. And I remember starting my story of how Godzilla's in Lake Superior and he comes up from Lake Superior and my main character is at that restaurant on top of the Radisson spinning around. And it's like, every time it spins around, Godzilla is closer and closer. And I thought it was so cool,
What a great dramatic tension. Hold on. Yeah. We got to wait 4 minutes for the thing to rotate.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah. And I thought it was so cool, but it's like, you're just sitting at your table. Oh my gosh. Then you spin. Oh my gosh. You spin.
But as a kid though, you're thinking, yeah, we're going to come around. Yeah. I mean, it is a great visual device. It reminds me a little bit of like,
if it was spinning this fast, it would have been.
Yeah. Right. No, that's wonderful. So do you still have that story? Do you have a copy?
It's around somewhere, but you want to hear something? I took that idea and there's a part in Big in Japan book 1 where I emulate that whole idea, where it's a strobe like effect, and when this is a virtual cornucopia of all sorts of nasties.
Good. This is what I was going to ask about you next. So let's go ahead and talk about Big in Japan and book 2 as well.
Yeah. So there's a scene where the aliens are coming down and they've breached the EIO. And the EIO there's definitely a lot of EIO jokes. The EIO is the Earth Intelligence Organization, and aliens have breached it to come help them against. I mean, you're going to find there's a lot of familiarity here, especially probably to the Showa era of kaiju films. And as the head alien is getting closer, there's a strobe light going. So it's like, he's here. And pretty soon he's right in front of the head of the EIO, whose name is Jack. They call him Sir Jack, is right in front of his face. And he goes, Jesus Christ. Cause he's very, I would love for people to read this stuff because and I want to get my thoughts in order because Sir Jack is a really cool character, and I might give away who he is just so it might drum up some interest in the story. So, do you want me to kind of give the whole rundown on?
That's totally up to you. I mean, I was going to describe this as like a wild ride of rock and roll,
Yep.
giant monsters,
Yep.
mecha,
Yep.
aliens, and it's just so much fun. It's like a roller coaster ride.
It totally is.
And that's what I liked about. I mean, I so much about it, and I think it's wildly entertaining. And I
want
would,
to,
yeah.
if you don't mind, I'd love to give kudos to on the first book to Alan Barnes. And Alan is the one who did the cover art.
He certainly did.
Isn't that wonderful?
It's beautiful.
And of course, he did the back cover art. And it was the whole idea was that the book was originally going to be a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
And I had talked to Alan about the story, and he said, well, why don't we do a comic book? And I said, okay. And comic book writing is so different than writing a novel, of course. I had too many words. So he said, we have to keep it to a limited amount of words so we can rely on the panels to tell the story through drawings. And then pretty soon I overshot that. And then all of a sudden I made too many words. I said, well, why don't I just do a novella? Pretty soon I passed that up, and then it just wound up becoming what we decided to make, just a illustrated novel. And his art throughout the book is so wonderful, and he just captured so many of the creatures. I love his style, and that's Zargatron, and like even this in London. And
what's so rare that you get an illustrated novel anymore. It reminds me of the books I had as I was a kid. Like that you would. I had like a Treasure Island that was like that. And he had these nice great drawings, pencil like drawings, like sketches.
I
love
that one.
That's fantastic.
So
I mean, the artwork's amazing.
It really is. And he was a driving force on that. I had the characters and the idea, but I got to tell you, Alan, when I told him I wanted them to pilot a giant mech, since the mech was coming from the United States, he said, well, why don't we make it a giant cowboy robot? Where if it was coming from Japan, it'd be a samurai.
Sure.
His idea was the cowboy mech, and I said, well, if we're gonna have a cowboy mech, we got to call him the Duke.
Sure.
There's no other word, but which is really cool. These guys were a big part of this. To give you kind of a quick synopsis of the first book, and I'll tell you why I wrote two of them too, instead of the traditional three.
Well, if I can anticipate, I remember you talking about this. Going to kind of leads into something I was going to talk about a little bit down the road, but it's part of your ministry.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, the two books you said the character is based off of you both before and after your sobriety.
Absolutely.
And I thought that was a really, really wonderful way to, I think writing is always cathartic, and I have used writing to process as well. I think it's important. The act of writing allows you to. It's like the best kind of therapy there is, because you're just allowing yourself to channel and deal with all the emotional baggage and harm and damage that has happened to you or you've done to yourself, and try to come to some understanding with it, and then allow yourself to say, okay, you understand it. You can come to a place of at least setting it out there, so it's not inside anymore.
And it's very therapeutic.
I love how you've kind of brought so much of this, not only the personal experience. I mean, that's the thing writers are always taught. The first thing you're taught in any creative writing class is write what you know.
Yep.
And I think that's why Stephen King writes about writers.
Yep.
So much.
And alcoholics.
And problems with bullies. Mr. King, I'd love to have you on the show.
And
I get it. We get it. You're a writer. We get it. Can you write someone different, please? Like he's going to come on our show.
You never know. You never know.
Probably
hey, I think it's a great show. I'm loving it.
Son of a bitch, Justice is calling me out. I gotta go in between the lines.
Look, Stephen King.
Yeah, you show me up, Mr. King. I'm
Come
here,
on, man.
Definitely do it.
Yeah, but you're right. That's why.
Well, that's why I love it. That's why I wanted to tell you, the city is bringing about is this concept of show what you know, you write what you know, but you're also bringing all your passions to front.
Yeah,
and together, the worlds of music, the worlds of kaiju, all these kinds of things are coming together. And this is kind of my segue into
the low self-esteem part.
Yeah, all that.
Because
I mean,
we talked about this earlier, because in the first book is Tommy, and he's dealing with his low self-esteem, his inferiority complex, and all of these things that I suffered with. However, I dealt with that by drinking and drugging and winding up in treatment and having a almost 20-year battle with illicit drugs and alcohol, right? So as Tommy finds himself, Nathan, in the book, Tommy's going this way, he's going up, and Nathan's going down. So, and Nathan at one point gets so wasted in the book that he can't pilot the mech, and he destroys, drunk driving the giant robot. He destroys half of Tokyo. Luckily, he doesn't kill anybody. But
only in fiction, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because in the start of the second book, all of a sudden, Nathan is the protagonist. And it starts off with Nathan in rehab. And that's the start of the book. And what's kind of cool about the second book and why I like it, I'll be honest, I personally think I did a better job as a writer. I don't know about story, but as a writer, I think I did a better job. I did a better job taking time to outline. I took a better job because there's a lot of things like, I love this book. Don't get me wrong. I wrote it. I love it. But there's some fluff in there where it just like, it just goes off on a tangent because it was the first novel that I finished. So it's like, often as writers, when we're writing, all of a sudden you can take a little left turn and it can steer your book in an entirely different direction.
Sure.
Just from one paragraph.
Yeah.
And I wrote a couple of those. I wrote a couple of those paragraphs where I thought it was cool, but in a sense, maybe it wasn't necessary, but
that's what good editing will do, because you can always cannibalize that stuff for something else.
Absolutely. So, but that's that. And the thing about the second book that I really like is, as Nathan, he leaves the band and he's kind of pursuing a solo career because that's what all lead singers do when they've had enough.
Sure.
And there's all sorts of things and people that kind of pop up during it, including a new kaiju. And the new kaiju is I love this art. The new kaiju is a mecha tarantula named King Taraxian. And King Taraxian is a metaphor for Nathan's addiction. And there's like a point in the book where in addiction, where eventually we have to face our demons and face ourselves. And I never got this illustration in the book, and I really wish I would have, because Alan did a fine job. When you're in the throes of editing and putting it all together and how many pictures you're going to have per chapter, you get moving pretty fast at what you're going to do.
Sure.
But there's a scene in the book where Nathan comes face to face with his demons. So he's staring at the 8 eyes. Literally, he's about to get mauled by the giant spider, and he sees his reflection in the 8 eyes of his demon, which is the spider, which is a metaphor for his addiction. And and another thing that happened while I had to take a year break from writing the second book because my father died while I was writing the book. And that shows up. It shows up, but it started going so dark, and I always want to keep it light. I want there to be an underlining message of how we can deal with our low self-esteem, how we have a choice. We don't have to believe what the committee says, or if we have addictions, that we can battle our addictions. We can fight it. We're not done, and we're not done in by these. And we have the opportunity to not only become better people it's so important that we like ourselves, and I'm not saying by any means that we walk around and we become narcissists, and I'm talking about simply enjoying being in your own skin. And for me, I couldn't do it. I couldn't enjoy being in my own skin, where the only way I felt comfortable, I had to medicate with chemicals, and that's pretty common with addiction, but that's what I was going to say earlier. The same thing about the ministry kind of came with this book, where I felt if one person read the book and it made, as Tommy's hero journey progresses and he learns more about himself, there's a scene where I love the scene where he saves a group of people from a kaiju, right? And he's in his ship and he swerves down, and they're done. They're done. And they're all looking up, and they're holding their children, and their life is flashing in front of their eyes. And he can almost hear the screams from inside his ship. And he goes down and he thwarts the spider crab. And then all of a sudden his whole life changes. All of a sudden being a rock star is not as important. And his thoughts about his low self-esteem in this pale in comparison to the act of saving so many people. He calls it puny. He says, my thoughts and my dream, I can't remember it verbatim. It's been a long time, just seemed puny compared to the intent of saving these lives. And it's kind of, I got to tell you, I read it and I'm like, I can't believe I wrote that, because it's pretty cool,
Yeah.
But if the book helps one person who reads it and they go, and Mark, this happened at G Fest. And did you go to any of the Big in Japan panels? We would have,
I'm sure I did. I mean,
oh my gosh, we'd have
100
people in there. 100 people in there with their Big in Japan books and drawings. And I remember one of them saying, dude, I'm Tommy. I am Tommy. I remember him saying that. And I remember at first it kind of eked me out that somebody was so connected with a character that I created that was based off of myself.
Yeah.
But then when he said, dude, I am Tommy, I knew where he was coming from. He was saying, I struggle with low self-esteem, and I'm not letting myself believe that I'm the great person that I'm supposed to be, or I'm just not comfortable in my own skin where I can like myself. I got to tell you, for me to write a novel that was 286 pages, I don't remember exactly how many words, it took what I call writer's fluid to keep me going, because especially on the second one, because, when you write a book about rock stars fighting giant monsters and a couple critics get a hold of it, they're really not too sweet about it, and
well, that's why we're given two middle fingers, and so we're just the one out.
Exactly.
Right, but this is the point, though. It's just fiction. It's fun. It's it's fantasy. It's not meant to be taken seriously.
Well, I felt good about it. A
like
review. Somebody had done a review, and I liked what somebody had commented on the review. Boy, it was a review that just slammed the book to the point where I wonder if this is somebody I know,
a personal grudge,
an ex-girlfriend or something, and but somebody had wrote on there, I don't think this was meant to be War and Peace. And I went, wow, that's
exactly
great.
Right.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Duh, what do you not get about it?
You know what Neil Peart says? The drummer from Rush, who passed away a couple years ago.
Yeah.
He had a great saying that I came across a couple years ago, where he says, I don't take stock in the positive reviews because then I don't believe in all of the positive reviews, because then I have to believe the negative reviews.
Sure.
So he
But he
just
didn't
stayed.
like praise anyway. It was
Yeah,
embarrassing
he
for
was
him.
totally like that, but
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
Let's go back around here to world building. We've talked about character development, which I know a lot of the characters come from your personal experience. And there's the two main characters here, but let's a little bit look into the concept of world building. These characters have to live in an environment. So how did you kind of design this world? Like what aspects of this world, do you like the most?
The world is basically, if I had to put it in any time or space, it would probably be the present time, but it's more of a Showa era world.
Okay.
Where a lot of the monsters and a lot of the tech, if you look at Akira Takarada's character, it's plain and simple. It's from the 68 era. King Kong
Now, for
estate.
people who don't understand what we mean by Showa, if you're not a Godzilla fan or a kaiju monster, kaiju is a giant monster.
Yep.
Showa is an era of Godzilla films from the early 1954 that went all the way to I think 74.
Yeah, Mecha Godzilla. When Terra Mecha Godzilla was the last one, and then
75. That was called the Showa era of films. Then the next era called the Heisei. That began in 1984.
And you said it right.
Yeah, the 1984 to about 1995, 95
with Destroya.
And then the Millennium series, which was 99 through what was the last one, Final Wars, 2004, 2005, and then the current series, which is Shin. So anyway,
absolutely, I'm very good. So I would say my world is kind of a Showa era Japan, but there's some modern twists on it, like a lot of the world is kind of my world. It's kind of my world. I took events from when I toured. I took a few hotel trashings from when I was literally on the road, and some of the things we did a little more exaggerated, because they have a lot more money than I did, so they could take it to the next level. But it's also a world where shit happens. I mean, places get nuked, places get destroyed, and I don't want to give anything away, but it's not like you're reading it and in the nick of time, so and so or this place is going to get saved, because it doesn't always happen in my books. So it's created a whole new world.
There's a lot of gravitas to the books. As much as they're fun, there is a lot of fun. And like I said, this is a roller coaster
there's
action
some
ride.
heavy duty stuff.
But there's there's a lot of underlying current of seriousness here. I want to forge ahead and get through some more of these questions.
Sure.
If it's all right.
Shoot them at me, brother.
Well, because you've talked about character, and I love the fact that you have all these characters, and I can obviously see that you're borrowing, since you got the James Bond, you want the Q, you want these other kind of figures, you got yourselves in there, you got your heroes, Takarada-san. I want to talk about your creative process.
Okay.
We talked about your world building. So, how does your creative process work? Like when you have an idea, like this idea, because you've done other writing, nonfiction, but how does that begin for you? Like, let's take us through the process of the kernel of the idea to finished product.
My creative process for both music and writing for me kind of happened in the same way, where I get ideas, and I'm sure you can relate to that. You're driving in your car, you're in your office, you're somewhere, all of a sudden it's like you get hit on the back of the head, and all of a sudden it's like this idea. I get a lot of ideas like that. I literally, on my phone, for writing ideas, music ideas, I have a dictaphone, and I immediately, when I get those ideas, I get a lot of them at night when I'm laying in bed.
Right.
And
if you don't write it down immediately, your brain's going to forget it in the morning.
If you're a creative person, put your phone right next to your bed so you can just go over there and grog into it what the idea is.
Yes.
So you
this
have
is
it.
what I
always forget those. All of a sudden I'm thinking, rock stars fighting kaiju. And think of the multi levels of big in Japan. Big
Right.
meaning kaiju.
Sure.
I mean, what about
Big man Japan?
You know, I
Spinal
thought
Tap,
about that
Sex
afterwards.
Farm is big in Japan. I mean, you got
Yeah,
all that
and
latent
how
rock
many
and roll stuff.
musicians? How many musicians say, "Well, my band's really big in Japan"?
Yeah, I know. That's a dream come true, right?
Yeah. So right there,
Yeah.
that's where the whole idea, and it stemmed not from the thought, stemmed from the name. The name is what drove the thought.
Yeah.
So, and
I
then,
get it.
And then
that's
the
all
other,
it takes sometimes. Sometimes it's that spark. It just everything comes out of that.
Well, and then a lot of things for me, creative wise, I get a lot of inspiration from music. When Big in Japan 1 was written primarily to the soundtrack of Godzilla versus Megaguirus,
okay,
and GMK, and to Daimajin. That's where, you know, all Daimajin being a Fukube, but I always got such great inspiration from that kind of music.
Sure.
You know,
music's very. That was one thing I'm going to mark that, scratch that off on my list. Like, do you listen to music as you write? All my books, I have a writing playlist on my jukebox.
Has
thousands
to be instrumental
of thousands
for me though.
Yes, no words. It's
words.
Like a lot of 30s music. Like in my cozy mystery series, one of the characters who is an autistic young man who has a radio station.
Music for the era of your book.
Well, it's not set in the 30s, it's set now, but he loves, because I love 30s music, and so I have it. And part of Juniper, the town, is there's this sense of anachronism. You know, things are kind of stuck in time, but in a good way. It's not a horrible way. So I wanted a 30s music station, so that's you know in there. But when I write, like when I wrote Death's Head, because it's set in the early 1930s, it's set near Haiti, it's got voodoo, it's got zombies. I found like real voodoo music, drums and chants, and I found a big like 5-hour clip on YouTube, and I listened to that for a month. That was my job. I wanted to write this book in a month, and I would just stick on this. And after about 3-4 days, I kind of got to know where the parts were. Like at 45 minutes in, there was this really nice passage I liked. About 3 hours in, I'm like, yeah, I like this part.
Me too.
But after hearing voodoo drums for a month, it was like
Gage Black.
Gage Black. I listened to a lot of Slayer.
Did you really?
Yes.
I was going to say like Enrico Marconi.
No, well, no, that would be awesome. Yeah, this because there was such a level. I mean, it's a revenge story. I mean, at its heart, it's a splatter western. So it's grim, it's dark, it's violent, and I was intensely fueled by hate, and I tried to make it reach into the darkest parts of me, elements of hate in my id, and try to like bring it out in a way that like, oh my God. Because by the time, I mean, the criticisms I received on Gage were pretty good. The feedback, like as far as my writing, like a pulp writer, really famous pulp writer, said Justice's prose is knife sharp. He didn't really like the story because it was just too grim for him. He said by the end of the story, there's no redemption for Gage. I'm like, yeah, because he's an inhuman monster. I'm like, yeah, of course, he's been sent to this prison in Hell, Arizona for 3 years for a crime he didn't commit. He's going to get out, and he's going to get revenge on the 5 people who sent him there.
Be angry.
It's like the ultimate story. Revenge is the ultimate fantasy. It feels good to get revenge, and that's what was feeling. So I did a lot of like Slayer and that kind of stuff.
Release the Slayer.
Yeah,
fans.
and it was just like super intense. And then what else? And then for my cozy, a lot of like 30s music, and then for so it's just kind of like, but normally my writing stuff is everything from, I love Lionel Hampton. He's a vibraphone player. I love his music, and that's usually what I'm writing. But some soundtracks, the Alien 1979 Alien soundtrack, because it's so ambient and kind of stark. I love the soundtrack to the movie Ravenous. Michael Nyman, and just things like that will come out. Vince Guaraldi, I love that kind of jazz.
Absolutely.
And then I have a lot of Mozart and a lot of Beethoven. Not the singing stuff, except for the Missa and the Requiem.
Yeah.
But I want to get back to your writing. I heard you talking about outlines before. So
Yep.
organization, tell me about, you're more of an outliner planner versus a pantser, obviously, right?
I am definitely now more of an outliner.
Okay. Tell me about your organization.
It helped me so much with the second book. It helped me, and it helps me with my articles, and um, it just it keeps me. I love to go on bunny trails. I love to go out, and where some of them can be good, I like to kind of stay within the story, so it just doesn't get too far. And like I said, I experienced that a little bit in the first book, um, where I just found, for me, I just seem to write better when I think about the story as a whole and what I want to happen, between the main plot and the subplots. And I kind of think about, okay, what's the top plot, what's the top story, what's the underlining story, what's maybe a little B plot we could have going in the background, that may rear its head in another book. So I try to keep that in mind, and I kind of look at it like playing dot to dot. I take the chapters, I take the ideas. This is what I've been doing. I take the ideas for the names of the chapters to take me in the direction that I want the book to go. Does that mean that's going to be the chapter's name? No, but it helps me stay in that direction. And then I kind of will write and it seems like a lot, but I'll write a little summary, just about a paragraph, about what I want to happen in that chapter, and
Okay.
how that's going to propel the story, so it doesn't get too far off or stray away from the story or the plots. And what's really cool is, like, a lot of times when you read a book, you read something in the first few chapters, and then it sort of goes dormant during the book, and then all of a sudden at the very end it rears its head together, and it ties together so much, and it's like, how did they do that? And it's like, well, I wrote a little bit about it here and here and here, and then I did a little sideline where here's how it's going to grow and nurture during everything else that's happening. And then when you get some situations like only that issue can really resolve the problem that's going on midway in the book or towards the end, all of a sudden you've forgotten about that element, and they come back in and save the day, so it I'm a very visual person. As much as I
Yeah.
like music, I'm so visual. And when I have it in front of me, and it's like, when I do my outline, it's sort of like your notebook. There's lines, there's this, there's doodles,
Mm-hmm.
what the monster might look like, or what
Okay.
is going on, or so. And it helps me write. I feel I write better when I do that.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, I'm an organizer as well. I have to, like a lister, like when I get my
Yeah.
ideas and I develop them. Um, I think mine come from just spending so much time in academia,
Yeah. Yeah.
and having to have a plan and organize, and what I would teach my students, to develop a paper. And so I would do the same thing. I would, you always have to start off with an idea, then you develop it.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
you're starting off with the idea, you never know where everything's going to fit yet. I'm just like,
Right.
you're just generating, you're brainstorming. And so every idea I have for a book or an idea, like, I'll just write it down, and not everything's going to make it. And then I start trying to figure out, okay, then I start putting the pieces in place. Like, I got all the
Right.
pieces. Now where do I
Yeah.
want them? And then in the terms of like my cozy, I actually color code my outline. Because I have elements that where the cozy elements are one color, the mystery is one color, the exposition's another, a secondary plot is
Yeah.
another color.
Yeah.
So for me, I see it visually, like, okay, if I'm writing a cozy element, the color helps me remember, like, okay,
Sure.
let's really cozy this up. Let's try to make sure, where if it's the mystery element, that's what I'm
Totally
going to be
get that.
focused on,
Totally get
and
that.
it's been helpful for me. So um I love that. I love that you have that, writing a paragraph for it is. And then when you see things coming together, I think outlining enables you to kind of leave those breadcrumbs, because you know what the end's going to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
You see
Yeah.
the whole roadmap, and so you can do those things earlier on, kind of to drop those hints that you see, like M. Night Shyamalan does so well, that you don't know they're hints until after you see the end.
Exactly.
They're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
that's how he does. It's like, yeah, that comes from planning.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm always amazed at these pantsers, the writers who they just start off, they have no idea where they're going. I'm like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine just
And
trying to do
that's
that.
cool too. I mean, you can
Right.
get
They do it.
yeah.
More power to them.
Yep.
My brain couldn't handle trying to construct an entire story and
But
characters and
that's how I
world.
did the first book, just like that. And I was defiant about organizing, and I was defiant about doing an outline. I just want to write as it goes. And the more I thought about it and the more I started writing, and when probably after the first book, when I was offered a couple opportunities to write articles for magazines, I felt that I should probably take a more of a pro stance, professional stance on how I do my writing. And that's when I started doing it. And now I love it. And I wouldn't do it without it, because you do, for me, not, like I said, I did the first book like that. And, but for me, I like the idea. You even see that in book series, where something from a book that happened 2 books ago comes up in a fourth book, and
Right.
it's like, do you think they planned that? And it's like, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Or else
Or
they
they
got
see that
real
something
lucky.
worked, something resonated with them.
Right.
Because
Right.
I'm not sure how many books the plan ahead. Like the Cozy Mystery series has always been 4, so I know Gage Black's a trilogy, so I know the larger story arcs.
So you've sort of outlined all 3 of them.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
kind of know. Like Death's Head could be an ongoing series. We'll see.
But you kind of have to, though. I mean, I would
Yes,
think you
you
would
have
have
to kind
to.
of know where you're going to go, what's going to happen in a general sense.
And isn't it fun
Yeah,
for the reader? It's like when for me, as when I read, I like when you feel like you're in on something.
sure.
It rears its head again, or it's a
Yeah.
person or a character that you've forgotten about. And all of a sudden that person comes in
Mm-hmm.
on the back of a stallion and saves the day. And it's like, it totally works. It's like, oh my gosh, it's Eric and his men, it's Eric the Red and his clan coming in to save the day,
Yeah.
all of those things that we can, not only visualize, but we have feelings, and
Mm-hmm.
so, and it was really fun, because like what you're saying about writing about where you grew up, there's just something special about doing that. That's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I
Yeah.
might, and what was really fun about it too was it was only like 5,000 words. That's why
Sure.
I wanted to do a book of individual stories,
Right.
so
But
you have to,
anthology, because you could write in 5,000 words, you got about 15 to 20 pages. You can do anything. It's just short, get in and get out, and you cover anything. Um, but no, yeah, I like, there's something about that, the memories of the place, sharing that,
yeah, yeah,
and it's like sharing, but it also inventing at the same time.
yeah,
It may not have been
agreed.
the precise thing that happened, but it was close enough that you can talk about how it felt, the
Yeah,
experience of it.
yeah,
And even something as silly as like, uh where I lived, there was a funeral home kind of catty corner to us, and we could see in the back where they had like a big garage, and so the kids who lived in a couple houses down with me, we would always play together, and we were always imagining, like, because we were pretty young, that this back room, those big like garages where they had like all their tractors and stuff, we thought that this is where they kept all the coffins,
yeah,
and we were thinking, I bet if we go in there, we can find a body,
yeah.
and that's the kind of stuff that when you're, 10 years old,
Oh
that's
man, it
that's
becomes total Scooby Doo.
exactly, that's what you're thinking. And we were like, because we were afraid we were going to get caught, like, oh no, we're going to get in jail for like breaking in, I mean, we never did anything about it, but the memories of that, talking about that, made their way into my first book, because the characters were talking about that.
Yeah,
I love being able to kind of drop those and using real
yeah,
life, real memories that are kind of funny or embarrassing, and kind of bringing them up into a book, because it just kind of happened. It came out. I didn't write in my in my outline, Abby and Ray talk about this. It's just they're having dinner, with with Ray's parents, and it just kind of happened. This was one of the rare scenes where the characters kind of took over, because I'm like you, I'm a visual writer. It's like I see a movie in my head, and I'm just trying to write with words what I'm seeing. And this was the instance where, like, for an hour and a half, I'm writing the scene, and I didn't realize how much I was smiling until at the end, my cheeks were so sore, because it was joyous, and it was like effortless. And just having this memory, it was so much laughter and fun in this scene, and like all these memories, I'm like, most of them were like really my memories of like growing up in this town, and to be able to put them in the story like that, and like it triggered the memories. Like I wasn't consciously thinking of it, but to have it come out in the story, and like, oh, okay, I get to share that.
That's a total Monster Kid Chronicle story too. Whole idea of you and the neighborhood kids, the old man who has the tractor shed down the street, but it's really that's where they make the coffins.
Exactly. Right. I know. Well, speaking of feelings, this is my ham-handed segue into my next question. Tell me how you felt when you saw your book in print for the first time, when you held it in your hands. Here it is. What was that like? Yeah. Oh, great. Let's hear about that.
I was terrified. Well, the first book I got back, there was a typo. It said Big in Japan, a novel by Timothy Price.
Oh no, on your name.
I got a bunch back, and and I was already going to G Fest. Luckily the name was smaller.
You could have drawn like a stick of an eye. You could have said that's just the dot for the eye. Just had a big giant.
I put in a rush order for round tickets, and what I did, or round little circle stickers that said special G Fest edition.
Oh.
And I took the round sticker and put it right here, so it just looked like I threw it there.
Oh, nice.
It covered up the misspelled word.
Perfect.
So if anybody has one of those G Fest special edition, they sold out.
That's fantastic. I love that.
So I was always weird about picking up books, but once I picked it up, terrified, picked it up and went through it, and I liked the size of the font.
Sure.
And I didn't see anything standing out that I would stress upon or about. It's pretty dang exciting.
Yeah.
Pretty dang exciting. I mean, this to me, I love it. I love having these. I have them displayed on my fireplace. It's very important to me. I'm not trying to brag about them, but it's something that is very special to me. And we both know it takes quite the commitment to write a novel. When you finish a book and you put that period there, whether you put the end or you have a plan to continue it, there's nothing like that. I mean, just that feeling of accomplishment that you did something that a lot of people set out to do that most will not finish.
Yeah. So, okay, just a couple more questions. I'm going to wrap this up. What is your writer fantasy? If you have one.
I do. And as my wife walks past me, it's been an idea that she's been telling me to do for a long time, and that's to do my biography.
Oh, nice.
From how, like I said earlier, how my upbringing was and how that affected my life, and how I wound up in treatment so early, and then living that lifestyle on the road for 10 years. And then, finally after, 3 attempts at treatment and in and out of jail, and oh my gosh, all of the stuff that you kind of think about when you think about the life of an addict, that by the grace of God, I got through, and
your goal would be to share the story. I mean, I'm dovetailing into question about your ministry here.
Yeah.
So would it be then to say, look, here I am, here's what I went through, this is going to resonate with a lot of people who are in similar
Yep.
situations.
Yep.
And I'm going to give you a little bit of hope that you probably don't have otherwise.
So instead
because
of
there is something better,
exactly
that you can achieve.
So instead of
this.
like hiding it through a fictional character like Tommy or Nathan, I just come clean and just write about me and my upbringing and where it's led me, and quite frankly, the amazing and wonderful life I've been given in recovery. Because I wouldn't even know you, Mark, if you know, you've never known me as somebody who was an addict. Nobody at G Fest. I see even something as simple as going to G Fest is something that never would have happened if I was an addict, you know, because they're just things that you don't think about. You don't think about family. You don't think about in a good way. You don't think about the things you can do unless you're kind of dwelling on it and wishing those were the things you could do, you know, and I've gotten so much. I've gotten so much. And I would just love to share with people how, man, if it can work for me, it can work for you.
That's great.
You know, and
that's your music. That's your ministry. I mean, would you like to talk about your ministry? It's faith, recovery, and music. I mean, this is a good platform for you to showcase what you're doing. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, I'm okay with, you know, we are going to differ theologically all day, but that's okay. That doesn't change the love that we have for one another. I'm an apostate for all the reasons that I will be happy to share you. I'll send you my copy of Toxic.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's not relevant to me because that doesn't matter to our friendship, to our relationship. You know, I mean, like the first person, I'm just going to tell you, the first people to, when I first showed my cover on Facebook, I got a lot of flack from a lot of my Christian friends and family, and some people, I mean, one of them even like unfriended me. But the first person to reach out with me with love was Mark Matsky. You know, and he just said, I just want to say I love you, brother. Yeah, I love you. Wow,
that's and like coming from Mark too.
Well, I mean, the Matskys are just beautiful people, you know. So theologically aside, I think that your ministry and what you do to reach out to people, because you have a heart, because you've been there. That's the thing. You've been there, you know what it's like, but you also are on this side. I'm so proud of you for your ministry. I support you 100% in that ministry. I think it's a beautiful ministry that you do. And so just, I'll let you talk about faith, recovery, and music, and how you do that, what your goal is, what you want to do, because this is your platform now, and share it with the world, my friend.
Well, you know, for me, and thank you. And I love you, buddy. And there's nothing that's going to change that.
No, I love you, man. So,
you know, and I got to tell you what, man, I believe for me that what happened in my life, and, you know, you're probably going to get a lot of people that do that, the head slap and, oh my gosh, he's a nut. But, you know, I say that I was, you know, I started drinking and doing drugs when I was 11. And I know a lot of people start at a young age, and coming from my upbringing, which we talked a lot about with Tommy and with both Nathan, my characters, instantly for me, medicating with drugs or alcohol made me feel better. It made me feel like something. It just, medicating made me not feel like that person that had been beaten into me that I wasn't, if that makes sense. And I've always had a belief in God, but I never, it wasn't the fact that I didn't believe in God. My problem was I just didn't think God liked me. And after so many years of addiction and being out there, and I went through the whole drunk-a-log a few minutes ago. And this is where people think I'm a nut, is that I honestly, Mark, I feel like God talked to me. And I feel like some people in recovery will call it a moment of clarity. And if you're unfamiliar with that term, what that means is all of a sudden, for some reason, you see everything as it is. And it could be in the midst of your darkest hours. A lot of times it is, you could be on the floor of your rock bottom, or you could think you're at rock bottom and the trap door just opened and you went down even further, because rock bottom, there is no rock bottom. It goes down as far as is further than you want to think it does. So anyway, and I had that where I felt God talk to me and showed me in a way that made it understandable for me after years of people trying to help me to quit, and people who loved you saying, "Oh my gosh, quit. Can't you see what it's doing to you and your family?" And I never could. I couldn't see it. I never understood it. And all of a sudden I got that. And God showed me my life as it was, and almost like a Christmas carol, showed me where it was and where it was going. And dude, I was on my way out. There's no doubt about it, and one of the biggest miracles, if not the biggest miracle in my life, is that it was that moment that I literally stopped. That moment was 28 years ago, and it's been 28 years since I've drank or done any or have taken any illicit drugs or smoked crack or did blow or whatever you want to put in front of me, and it changed my life. And my beliefs in God stem mainly from, if people ask me why I believe, for instance, I don't say because of because of most of my problems that ever stemmed from religion weren't products of God, but they were products of the church and of people,
Doctrine.
you know,
Yes.
and that's and I know a lot of us suffer with that. And you know what? If you're listening and you had a bad experience with either the church or with people of the church who judged you or berated you or made you feel like you didn't belong there, I apologize for them, because that's not what it's about, And
The church should be meeting you at your point of need, wherever
hey man,
that is.
I don't go to church because we said it earlier. I'm not going to church because I'm perfect. I'm going
Right.
to church because I need to go to church,
Sure.
for
Right.
me. And
Yeah.
I need to go to church because I drink and drug because of my wiring. My wiring aren't, is not a product of my drinking and drugging. I drank and drugged because of how I'm wired, because of that committee I talked about,
Sure.
because of my upbringing, because of this, because of my low self-esteem. It's how I'm medicated. So if I stop drinking, I still need to work some sort of program. And that program can be a lot of things for a lot of people. It can be AA, which is spiritual based. It can be Celebrate Recovery, which is Christian based. It can be anything that, for God's sake, gets you clean and keeps you happy. So you're not gnashing your teeth and white knuckling it all the time and walking around clean but miserable, because that's
Mhm.
not what it's all about.
Right.
That's not what it's all about. Um, and I and over the years, the 28 years that I've spent in consistent recovery, my belief is based upon the miracles that I've seen in those 28 years. Cause I got to tell you, dude, there are some things that I just circumstances that you could just immediately blow off as complete coincidences. When you start seeing them over and over and over again, you just begin to realize, at least for me, I began to realize or believe that there's something much bigger at play here.
Mm-hmm.
And with this ministry, I feel God has given me an opportunity, because I didn't want to do it. I want to do it, man. And at first I didn't want to do it because I thought because I was too broken. I'm the guy who struggles with alcoholism. I'm the drug addict. I'm the guy with the committee in my head. I'm the guy who does all the things. Yeah. I love Kiss. I love metal. I do this, I do that. I don't want to stop playing metal. I love watching monster movies. I love slasher movies, I love all this stuff, and it's like, frankly, I don't want to give it up.
Right. And it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
I think that's what you're showing.
Yeah. And it doesn't.
None of it matters in a spiritual sense because it's the church. It's what set those kind of rules up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah.
It's like, I love writing stories about monsters and I love playing music. I'm like you. I love all sorts of music though. It's like I put out a CD last year of instrumental Christian hymns.
Yes. Some of my favorite tunes I remember songs were on that. And I just love your figure picking style.
Oh, thanks.
I asked once for you, sorry to get off track, if you had something from Garaldi and the Peanuts. And I think it was
Christmas Time is
skating,
Here?
Christmas Time, or yes, I think so. And I was like, oh.
Did I make you a CD and send you one?
I think you sent me a link to give me the song, and then was it on YouTube? Did you have it on YouTube?
Yeah. I'm gonna make you a CD because
okay.
I'm gonna do a Christmas instrumental CD.
Wonderful.
So, but I love doing that. But then again, I love playing Les Paul through a Marshall stack on 11.
Right.
And I also know that there's a lot of people who want to be clean, who believe, but feel maybe because of some of the things they like that they're not worthy. And it's not a question of being worthy.
Or they have to give them all up.
It's not. We're not perfect. And and maybe if you believe it, it doesn't mean it's a fault, or it doesn't mean that what I'm thinking is a mistake and God's forgiven me for it. What it means is no matter what it is, God accepts you. Sure. Period. And, like I said, I used to think because I was broken, God didn't want me to do this. But the fact is, it's broken people who are so much better at helping other broken people.
Right.
I'm going to get much further somebody I believe who has struggled with drugs and alcohol will maybe get a little, hopefully we'll get a little more relief talking to somebody who's been on that same path, that same journey, where they can share the outcome, and the outcome is good. It's got a happy ending, and it's like, and when I talk about the committee, you wouldn't believe how many people, just when I start talking about, I'm not saying I have voices in my head and I need to be hauled off in the padded ambulance, like I said earlier, but a lot of us have those incessant voices that continually tell us. When I share that, and all of a sudden people go, "You get that too?" And I'm like, "Yes." They feel so much better. And you know what? You have a choice. You don't have to believe that bullshit. You don't have to believe those words in your head. That's the stuff.
Just because they're there doesn't mean they're true.
Yeah. And to me, that stuff is not of God. That stuff is more of people that have instilled beliefs or discouraged you by whatever means that has made you feel less than you deserve to feel, you know?
Well, we carry that trauma with us. Childhood, we carry trauma our whole lives, and sometimes we're going to process it. It's going to take a long time to process these things.
Yeah, and that's what we try to do. We try to, we are I'm not a doctor. I am not a doctor. I am a knucklehead who, by the grace of God, has accumulated 28 years of recovery. And I feel like, I was approached and called to do this because, and I was going to say the second reason I didn't feel I should do this goes along the lines of what I'm saying. I want to play guitar. I want to play music. I want to write. These are the things I like to do. And selfishly, this is what I want to do. I want to write. I want to play music, and I just so happen to have 28 years and I work a pretty good solid program. I sponsor people. I reach out. I go to meetings. I do the things that help me stay sober, but I don't know if, look, God, I'm going to be straight and upfront with you. I don't want to give up playing. I don't want to give up writing.
Yeah.
I don't want to give up these things. And God went, that's not the plan.
Right. No one's asking you to.
Yeah,
Right.
But that's where I go.
Well, that was the church I grew up in. My
Yeah.
experience growing up was, once you become saved, then you have to give up everything you've ever done because it's all worldly, and that is a crushing kind of pressure to grow up and thinking, my God, there is just nothing fun. Like, why the hell am I doing any of this?
Hey, man.
And then by the time I was 10, I was having cognitive dissonance with my faith. Like, I knew at 10, like something was fucked up about all this, but I was taught this is the reality. And, and because no one could answer my questions.
Yeah.
I had deep theological questions at age 10. And that was my recovery coming out after 40 years of systematic emotional abuse and religious abuse.
And there's so much of that.
It is. And that's so I applaud you for on that end. It's like we're both recovering from the trauma that we've suffered when we were younger.
When we do the podcast, we have myself, we have a gentleman named Jeremy Garris who owns Spirits at Rest treatment facility in Montgomery, Minnesota. And we have our good friend, Pastor Christopher, on there. And I got to tell you what, man, greatest guys in the world. Awesome. And I like what he says. He says, you don't have to be an addict. You don't have to be an alcoholic because we're all recovering from something.
Right.
And I think a lot of us are recovering from trauma in the church.
Sure.
And, that's just, I don't say that to belittle my God or my belief in Jesus Christ. I say that I think there's a lot of things that are a bit askew. We're a non-denominational ministry, and our guidelines, I have to put our guidelines up because they're quite simple. They're quite simple. We are simply children, and this is for faith recovery music. We're simply children of God. We'd like to be clean. I was brought up as a Christian, so it's a Christian ministry. We are completely non-denominational. And if you want to we keep it as simple.
Right.
Keep it
simple, stupid. Right.
Yep. As possible, where if you have further beliefs within your Christianity or your religion, and you have doctrines that you feel compelled to abide by, we encourage you to do it, but this isn't the place. It's not here.
Right.
We're simple. We want to serve. We want to help others. We want to work our recovery, and we want to thrive in life. We want to have a good life. And there's no way you're going to get that life if you're struggling with addiction on a daily basis. And if you can't get out of the hatred of your own self. And, personally, me, again, the reason I believe, is because of the miracles that I've seen over and over and over, and not looking at it as a perspective of, being judged or the things that have happened to me as a churchgoer, but looking at it as how God or Jesus wants me to continue my life. So much of it becomes man-made doctrine and man-made this and man-made that. So that's where I stand with it. And what I love about it is that I'm getting shown more miracles through, and it's not like I don't know to be 100% honest. I don't know what is real and what is not real in the essence of a lot of things, but I do know this. I've seen a lot of people get their lives back. I've seen a lot of people happy. I've seen a lot of people starting to thrive, and people who are doing the things that they want to do, be it as musicians or writers or whatever, or seeking a job that they never thought they could have, or go back to school or whatever, because they're finding out who they are, and they're finding out that their identity is not within their addictions, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're really big about. And to kind of tie it in with everything, my dream for this, what I hope and what I pray about, is that one, that it's never, I get to do a lot. I get to do a lot of the things I love, and there is no denying that. I get to write music. I'm so tickled that I get to write music that people like and listen to. We both know that's a great feeling.
Yes.
I write a lot in the ministry. I write a lot of stories. I write a lot of my own experiences, and it's just awesome to get to use what I feel are my strongest points in something that has the ability to help people with their lives. So I'm hoping, as if it's seen fit, if God sees fit, that this ministry will grow, continue to help people, and we expand and we help more people through music, through writing. And not just me, man, I'm 55 years old. I'm not even going to be here that much longer.
Yeah.
So it's like,
we feel the encroachment of
yeah,
mortality.
yeah.
I'm
So
thinking, holy
it's got to be
crap.
something, yeah, that can
Yeah.
continue on,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that can't be about me,
Sure.
because the subject is so much stronger than what I am and what
Right.
I think I am. I'm just the guy that I feel was called upon to kind of get it started. And I think God kind of bribed me, saying, well, I'll let you play guitar, I'll let you play music. You can do whatever you want, Tim, and it's going to work, because there's a lot of people out there who don't think they can do some of this stuff.
Sure.
So that's
Well,
kind of,
that's fantastic, Tim. I mean, that's just wonderful. And just to know that you feel like you are being used in that capacity. I mean, purely in a non-religious way, just as psychologically and as a counseling kind of way of being a mentor.
yeah.
um it there is something. You have a lot of ethos, so the ethical appeal.
Mhm.
The ethos is reliability. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been there, I've done that, you
Yeah.
know. And it's just like being a mentor, and anything else. You are a mentor because you've kind of been there, and you can help other people who are,
Absolutely.
you look back and say, yeah, I've been through this. Let me help you kind of get to where I'm going to go. Or your path
Yeah.
may be a little different, but I can help you along the way.
And
And that's a really important.
I appreciate you respecting where I'm coming from, because I get put in a lot of situations where, if you're at a recovery meeting and you're talking about your recovery, it's like shooting ducks in a barrel.
Mm-hmm.
If you're at a church or a church gathering and you're talking about your faith and your recovery, again, it's kind of like shooting ducks in a barrel, but God in his infinite wisdom has kind of found it funny to, like, when I go out, he always seems to put me in front of a beer garden, or something like that.
Irony.
It
Yes.
is total irony, and
Right. And he's
but
bringing you to the apostates show. But I figured he made an ass to speak once. He could do it again, right?
hey man, and I got to tell you though, it's like you walk into those situations scared to death.
Yeah.
Like right now, I know and love and trust you,
Sure.
where I know even if our beliefs are different, you're not going to start throwing books at me and doing this and challenging me.
No.
But it does happen. It does
Oh,
happen.
certainly. I
But I
mean, I have a
appreciate,
lot of anger, but it's not directed toward the people who I know, who I love,
right.
you
And I
know. And
appreciate I appreciate how you, even with how you think and how you are, you you still let me talk about it and bring it up, and you see the importance of it. And dude, that's amazing. I mean,
oh,
that's thank you. And
you're welcome.
we don't compete with any other recovery organizations, like AA or NA or anything. It's just the fact of the matter is the numbers are huge. They're fucking huge
Yeah.
for the people that are are getting taken out from addiction. You know, the whole new opiate epidemic, you
Right.
know, and just it's nuts. The fentanyl, and the alcohol numbers that just continue to grow
It
and
grew up,
grow.
especially during the pandemic. It's got a lot worse.
Absolutely. And when that went up during the pandemic,
Right.
of course, suicide rate followed right behind,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
and it's important. It's important. And I don't like to bring up stats, and I'm not going to bring up stats, but I've had to talk to Rotaries. I've had to talk to churches. I've had to go to places where I'm trying to get funding and backing to help the ministry. Cause you know, like we're a nonprofit, you know, and so you're kind of forced to look at some of the stats. It's mind blowing. If somebody is coming out of the throes of addiction or alcoholism, and they've truly been put through the ringer and have had years of trauma, and you're like me, you've gone to jail for it, you've had other things happen in your life, DUIs, treatment, destroyed relationships, physical and mental abuse from both ends. You know, if somebody tells you that they can quit willy-nilly and not really have to work on themselves, that's usually sort of like the same lines as a Christian who thinks they're perfect, you know.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, gang, it's not about being perfect. It is not about being perfect, and you don't have to be perfect, and don't let
take that pressure off of yourself. That's part of the committee's. Absolutely. That's what their adults are telling you. Yeah, they got to take that pressure off.
Absolutely.
So, that perfection doesn't exist, you know.
Thanks for letting me share about it. And if
my pleasure.
If you are interested, can I give the website?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, as the last two things I was going to ask was, one is where can we find your books, and then two, where can we find Faith, Recovery, and Music? You know, tell us all your email addresses and all that, just your Facebook, all that jazz.
Yeah, man, I'm all over the place.
So we can find your books on
I
Amazon.
I think they're still on Amazon.
I've seen them on Amazon, and we can also.
I think they're on eBay. I think people buy them and sell them. I think people do a lot of that with other people's books. You know,
I'll have to look and see if I'm on there. I
saw one. It was like $19. Don't buy it there. Go to Amazon. And if you even hate the book, leave a nice review.
That's right. Excellent. And Faith, Recovery, and Music.
Faith, Recovery, and Music is we're on Facebook, where it's a private group where if you or anybody you know who is struggling and just wants to be part of the group, where they can share their successes and have a place to reach out sometimes. A lot of positivity, you know, a lot of music. We have a face group page. Again, it's private, Faith, Recovery, Music. Our website is faithrecoverymusic.com. And we also have a weekly podcast, Faith, Recovery, and Music weekly podcast. That is, it's through Anchor FM. So it's on like 7 platforms: Apple, Spotify, a couple others, iTunes, a few other ones that I can't recall right at the moment. And we also have a YouTube channel. So we have a lot of content out there, a lot of music, a lot of original music that pertains to not only faith, but to recovery, you know. So if you are in recovery, and a lot of us are, you want some inspiring recovery music, people seem to really like it, you know, and, you know, so we're kind of everywhere. So check it out if you want to learn about it, or more importantly, if you know somebody it could help.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up.
I love this, man. I love doing this.
You've been watching and listening to Between the Lines. You can listen to us on unsaneradio.com. You can get full episodes there or download to your device. You can watch us on our YouTube page, Between the Lines Podcast. That's where we're at right now. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you know someone who would like our show, tell them about us. If you're a writer, thank you, Tim. If you're a writer and would like to join me for a chat, email me at betweenthelines54@yahoo.com. That's betweenthelines54@yahoo.com. And here's my cheesy outgoing line. See you next time, Between the Lines.
Ooh, you even had the broadcaster voice.
That's right. I know my voice sounds wonderful in this microphone. Yes.
Oh, man. Mark, that was fun. That was
it was. We had